Right now, I'm challenging myself to see if I can make 128 Regulation H teams that are each different from one another over the course of 128 days. Why 128, you might ask? At the end of the 128 days, we're going to do something special where we battle every team against each other in a single elimination bracket to see which team emerges on top. There will be some competitively strong teams, there will be some gimmick teams, and there will be some probably a good number of goofs and gaffs in there, so if you want to follow through to the end, subscribe so that you can keep up with each day. But without further ado, let's move on to day 48. Alright everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be going over a Hippowdon team that is designed to drive people clinically insane. Now, I understand that that may be controversial, however, Hippowdon does have a good bit in its toolkit that allows it to stick around on the field for a very long time, and it is pretty RNG based, this strategy. However, if you can get the RNG in your favor, you are definitely gonna drive people off the walls. But without further ado, let's talk about Hippowdon. So Hippowdon is our sand setter on this team, and it's one of very few sand setters that we have available in Scarlet and Violet. So naturally you get the sand chip with Hippowdon, but we also have the option to go for the Sand Tomb, which is an 85 accurate move that will trap an opponent for 4 to 5 turns. So once we land that initial Sand Tomb and we get a little bit of damage in, we can chip down the opponent over time with Hippowdon, and since Hippowdon is pretty physical tanky, as long as we get rid of special attackers, then Hippowdon can really thrive. And then also to help Hippowdon get set up or to deal with other special attackers, we have the option for going to the Yawn, put opponents to sleep, and we have the Slack Off to restore our health, and with the leftovers we will be sticking around for a long time. And lastly, I picked a Terra type of Ghost, mostly because Ghost is only weak to Dark and other Ghost types. Secondly, we have Lycanroc, and Lycanroc is good because of its Sand Rush ability, so once we have the sand set up, then we can be super speedy in the sand with Lycanroc, and Lycanroc has the Rock Slide, which means that we have a 30% chance to flinch both targets, which is good if we want to get Hippowdon on the field and start sand tombing things without being hit or taking serious damage. A lucky flinch from the Rock Slide will be able to get Hippowdon going. But for our damage options, we also have the Close Combat, and we're Terra Fighting so that we can get a further boost on the Close Combat, and we're Drill Run just in case we need to break some steel types that we can't break with Close Combat. And with the Covert Cloak, we won't be getting faked out by Incineroar, so we'll be pretty free to do some good Rock Slide damage into Incineroar, even though we're going to get intimidated. The Rock Slide with the Sand Chip can pick up 2 hit KO on most Incineroar, not all of them, just most of them. There's a lot of HP defense in Incineroar. Third up, we got Chinchino, and the point of Chinchino is that we have the King's Rock item, which gives us a 10% chance to flinch whenever we hit something, but that is a 10% chance per hit, and we have multiple hitting moves, and with our Skill Link ability, we will land all the hits of our multi-hitting move. So Tail Slap, 85% accurate, but can hit 5 times, and we'll have 125 total base power. Bullet Seed can also hit 5 times, and we'll have 125 base power, but this move doesn't miss, but it also gives us grass coverage. And the Triple Axle, which is 90% accurate on each hit. And I'm pretty sure with the Skill Link ability, as long as you land the first Triple Axle, the other 2 are always guaranteed to hit. But Triple Axle has another 3 hits there for the King's Rock, so it's 10% and then another 10% and another 10%. It doesn't add to 30%. It's just additive percentages, which I'm not quite sure what it works out to. But Chinchino's pretty fast, so the odds of us flinching something is pretty high. Next up, we got Annihilate, and Annihilate is here just to be our Pokemon that we use to kind of nuke option something with the Final Gambit, but we also have attacks for Close Combat and Shadow Claw, since nothing on this team really deals with Intimidate that well except for Annihilate because of the Defiant ability, and we also have the Coaching option for increasing the attack power of any Pokemon on the field, but also the defense of any Pokemon on the field. And since Hippowdon is already really physically tanky, if we side coaching into it when there's only physical attackers left, Hippowdon's going to have a much easier time in that in-game, and Choice Scarf is making it so that we're outspeeding mostly everything that's not having their own kind of speed boost. Next up, we got Sinistcha, and Sinistcha is here to help heal the team, but also to provide some support in the form of the Rage Powder, and we're also Rocky Helmet, so anything that tries to hit us multiple times, we can go like Terra Steel in front of Mousehold, and then we can redirect the attack so that Mousehold ends up ending its own self on the Rocky Helmet. But we also have the Matcha Gotcha option, which we can use to heal against water types that would counter Hippowdon. but it also gives us a 20% chance to burn the opponent, further ensuring the game against physical attackers, but also giving us some nice chip over time on that burn to help out with the Sand Tomb. And we have the Life Dew to help restore ourselves and the ally Pokemon, as well as Hospitality is our ability to also help heal the ally Pokemon. And we have the Trick Room, since half of this team is fast, but if the opponent sets up Tailwind, us leaning Sinistcha can kind of keep them from doing that, because we have the option for going with Trick Room. So anything that's super speedy, we can underspeed it with our speedy mods in Trick Room. And lastly on this team, we have Klefki, and Klefki is designed to mostly get rid of terrains that would harm Hippowdon, like Psychic Terrain spam, or Grassy Terrain being boosted for Grass-type moves. We can Misty Terrain in front of Klefki, and it also weakens the power of Dragon-type attacks, which we don't have very many Dragon resistances on this team other than Klefki. Well, Misty Terrain also means that there won't be any statuses applied to Grounded Mons, so it gives us a way around Sleep, even though we do have some statusing in like Sinistcha's Burn, and the Klefki has the Thunder Wave for speed control. If we don't have to set Misty Terrain, we really don't want to. And then on Klefki, we just have an okay damage option in the Dazzling Gleam, which does some spread damage and can do some chip over time, and we're Focus Sash just so Klefki isn't getting knocked down one hit. And of course, the main reason that you run Klefki is because it is a Prankster Pokemon, which means that we will getting priority on all of our status moves. But yeah, that's the basic gist of the team. Let's get into some battles. Alright, so first up here, we have a battle against a Maushold Archaludon team, but they also have stuff like the Rillaboom, and the Corviknight especially can be really difficult here, since Corviknight is a flying type, and Hippowdon doesn't really have a way to touch those. Especially since it's a steel flying type, because we can't beat it with like our rock type, or our Chinchino, or our Monkey. The battle starts off, and I decide to lead Sinistcha and Annihilate to hopefully get a Final Gambit into something, but they lead Rillaboom and Clodsire, which really keeps us from going for the Final Gambit, since the Rillaboom can just Grassy Glide into us. So I decided to close combat the Rillaboom for as much damage as I can get. A Rillaboom is actually Rocky Helmet, and the Clodsire sets up spikes, so not a great first turn for us admittedly, because we might be in range of another Grassy Glide, and we're in range of another Grassy Glide, so Annihilate is going to go down. As we get the Machagacha again, but we miss Clodsire and we don't get a burn as they Toxic into Sinistcha here. So Sinistcha, even though it has the recovery and the Life Dew, is kind of having its days numbered. Now I swap in Hippowdon, hopefully to bait a Grass type move, and the Rillaboom tries to Wood Hammer as we Machagacha again into both Mons, but we miss the Rillaboom this time, which is the thing that I really wanted to burn with the Machagacha, but we're unfortunately getting a little unlucky. The RNG is not super on our side right now, but we rip the Terra Ghost on Hippowdon so that we can take the Wood Hammer pretty okay, and we get the Sand Tomb into Rillaboom, which with the Sand Chip, and the Sand Tomb chip means that's probably, or the Machagacha is actually just going to get Rillaboom, but with those two, the Rillaboom would have definitely gotten knocked out at the end of the turn. And now we've burned the Clodsire, even though the Clodsire hasn't shown to have a physical move yet. It is kind of likely, but the spikes and the Toxic are kind of annoying. As now Maushold is going to hit the field, and I try to redirect an attack from it in order to make it take Rocky Helmet damage. And we get the Sand Tomb and the Clodsire as they are forced to Toxic into Sinistcha, as we need Hippowdon to not stay Toxic for as long as possible here. But the Clodsire is being slowly worn away by the burn and the Sand Tomb, as now we have to swap in Lycanroc, and Hippowdon is going to take the Dragon Pulse, but we at least get the Sand Tomb into our Archaludon to start dealing damage into that, even though now Hippowdon is going to take some Toxic chip over time. We can protect with the Hippowdon here to make everything take more Sand Chip to him, and we try to get the close combat into our Archaludon to do as much damage as possible into it, but that's not quite enough to take it down, and the Clodsire decides to Earthquake, which actually does just enough damage to bring our Archaludon within a 2-hit KO in the next turn, and we get to bring in Sinistcha, who heals up Hippowdon, and I decide to Rage Powder as the Maushold reveals that it's actually Bullet Seed, and I think it tried to side proc the Archaludon there, but the Dragon Pulse comes down to Sinistcha, and Hippowdon is able to slack off here as the Sand Tomb is now going to take out Archaludon, and the Maushold only has Bullet Seed left to hit Hippowdon. So we get the Sand Tomb into Maushold, which means that it is now on a timer, and it looks like we're good as long as we get all 4 of the Sand Tomb chips, so now we can just slack off with Hippowdon for the rest of the time. However, we need to keep slacking off and hope that the Maushold isn't like King's Rock or something crazy like that. It's probably not, but
Continuing to slack off here while also not being crit is the ideal play, as we just need like one more turn here to slack off, and then the Sand Tomb is going to take it down, and then they decide to play rough on the last turn, but I just go for the Sand Tomb because if we land the Sand Tomb it would do enough damage to take out the Mouse Hold. And we win the game, and my opponent thinks that I am a rat, which none of these Pokemon on this team are a rat. So I don't know where they got that idea. So here we have another Annihilate, but it has a bunch of different friends. They have Basculegion, but no Rain, because Whimsicott doesn't learn Rain Dance and only can do Sunny Day things. So I wasn't quite sure what they would lead, but I decided to lead Sinistcha and Annihilate for hopefully Annihilate being able to take a KO on something in there. Intimidate on Arcanine, which means that we get a Defiant boost here. And I swap in Hippowdon, hoping that... well, first off, Shadow Claw KOs Basculegion, but I swap in here hoping that they would launch a Fire-type move into the Grass-type, but that did not happen. And now they bring in Amoonguss as a Shadow Clawed Arcanine, and we crit the Arcanine, which is pretty nice, but the Flare Blitz is going to cause Arcanine to take itself out. But that wasn't a super big deal, as we'll see. But the Amoonguss is actually Eject button, which kind of helps us out here, because it means that Hippowdon doesn't get put to sleep. Amoonguss goes for the Rage Powder as they Drain Punch into the Klefki, and I get Dazzling Gleam into both Moths just for some chip, and I decide to Yawn into the Amoonguss because I know the Amoonguss could put me to sleep, but I don't think they really gain any momentum by doing that. And then we double protect here so that the Amoonguss can't put us to sleep as the Amoonguss falls to sleep. And they haven't used their Terra yet, but I try to Thunder Wave into Annihilate, and they Rage Fist into us, which is too bad. But we also missed the Sand Tomb, so not a great turn there, as Amoonguss gets to burn a turn to sleep for free. This time now we get the Thunder Wave into Annihilate, but now we get to Sand Tomb into it, so it is kind of on a timer. It does reveal that it has the Drain Punch, which means that it's going to be able to restore more HP over time, but now we have Sinistcha in the back, who they have to Rage Fist in order to defeat, and they Rage Fist into it, and it takes down like all of its health. And I think I went for Trick Room there in case the Annihilate did para itself, but we have to go for the Sand Tomb here, and they do Drain Punch with Annihilate there into Hippowdon, and they put Hippowdon to sleep, and the Drain Punch is just enough for them to get the healing to survive the Sand Tomb, but thankfully they decide to Rage Fist, and they miss the Leaf Storm, which means that even though we didn't get to paralyze the Annihilate a single time there, the RNG is coming a little bit back into our side, as Hippowdon is able to wake up and goes for the Slack Off, as they reveal they are Terra Grass Leaf Storm, and Hippowdon lives the hit with the Terra Ghost. And now we just kind of have to stall the Amoonguss for a little bit, as we are faster than the Amoonguss, so we can just heal up and protect with our leftovers, and they're trying to Sludge Bomb us in order to poison us, I believe, which means that will reduce our healing over time, but they keep going for that Leaf Storm, and I decide to Yawn into the Amoonguss to make it a little bit more dealable, but also the only thing that really wins them the game at this point is a crit, and I want less chances for them to crit me. As they Sludge Bomb into Hippowdon, but they might also be trying to not waste their Leaf Storms, but the opponent at this point decides to give up, since we can just slack off to pretty much full health at the end of this turn and get off our Sand Tomb on the next one. Alright, here we have a Greninja Gambit team where they have both the opportunity to go for our Caledon Water Shuriken, or they could do Mouse Ape, or they could do Ape Water Shuriken, or they could just lead Blood Moon, Ursaluna, and Trick Room. So a lot of scary options here. The opponent leads Annihilate Mouse Hold, and we lead Sinistcha, which is good. We're kind of counting on them not being safety goggles here, but they actually just decided to protect with Mouse Hold and Final Gambit, as they're actually a Final Gambit monkey, which is fine for me because I went for the Trick Room here, which benefited us pretty greatly. Is now they swap our Caledon, and they have Protect on our Caledon, which means they're not Assault Vest, but the Assault Vest is kind of what we were more hoping for. But they Pop Bomb into Sinistcha, so they get redirected, and Hippowdon is going to be safe for a bit here, as they're kind of trading the redirections here, but my redirection is a little bit less important than theirs as long as they keep redirecting, because we can use Sinistcha to heal, and the Sand Tomb is going to do more damage to Mousehold over time. So we protect Hippowdon this turn, and we just go for the Machagacha to maybe get a burn into our Caledon, but also a burn into Mousehold would be really clutch right now, but we get the miss into our Caledon, so we don't get too much health on Sinistcha. Not that we would have gotten much health, it's just the miss is always really annoying on a 90 accuracy move. But I decide to Sand Tomb down the Mousehold here, as Sinistcha is going to go down from the Flash Cannon, and Trick Room now wears off as Greninja hits the field, and I figure that the Hippowdon could probably take the Archaludon since they're not, like, probably getting an Electro Shot anytime soon. But the Greninja side Water Shurikens into Archaludon, and they tear grass to probably try and live a fighting type move here. But I close combat Greninja since Greninja's a water type, and we really don't want Hippowdon to take the Water Shurikens. As they body press Hippowdon, but Hippowdon takes it pretty good because it's a physical tank. And now we have the chance to crit with Annihilate, but we can also just protect with Hippowdon in order to get a sleep turn. Then we can slack off, and then we can start Sand Tombing and yawning and all that other jazz, and we'd probably be good to win the game there. This game, the opponent's playing something pretty similar, but this time instead of the monkey, they have the Palisand, and they have the Pelipper for, like, rain mode with their Archaludon. The battle starts out, and they lead Greninja Palisand, which is good, is because I wanted to see, because I led Sinistcha and Annihilate, and they Terra Grass their Palisand so that they can Water Shuriken it, but we redirect the Water Shuriken with Sinistcha's Rage Powder, and it's not going to do too much damage to Sinistcha, and we close combat the Greninja, but unfortunately it doesn't take it out, as the Palisand now gets up and Amnesia, and I Rage Powder again, so that we can start dealing damage into Palisand, because Greninja isn't too threatening right now, but it U-turns out and it actually dies on Sinistcha's Rocky Helmet, which, I mean, I guess it ends Sinistcha. It was better if Greninja stayed on the field, because it was kind of useless at that point, and we're just trying to close combat into Palisand, but they correctly read that, and they Hurricane into the Annihilate, and Sinistcha goes for the Machigacha to maybe get a burn, but at least get some health back from the Pelipper is nice. Now we can bring in Lycanroc, and we can swap in Hippowdon for the change to Sand, and the Rock Slide flinching either opponent here would be great, but the Weather Ball is going to be caught on the Lycanroc. Lycanroc's also going to catch the Shadow Ball, and the Sandstorm is going to take down Pelipper, so they don't have a way to change the weather back from Sand anymore. As now they revealed Braviaries there last month, so we go for the Rock Slide again, and now Braviaries within 2-ko, but unfortunately it's going to get off the Esper Wing, that causes it to race its own speed, and Palisand is actually Shore Up, which means that they're restoring more health inside of the Sandstorm, so not great overall. Our only out at this point is if Sinistcha gets the Machigacha damage into Braviary, but it just psych-upped the Palisand stat changes, so yeah, not super great. If we had burned the Braviary there, we would probably win the game, but we ended up burning the Palisand instead, as the Sand Chip is ticking down the Braviary, but there's not going to be enough turns of sand left. They critical hit the Esper Wing onto Hippowdon, which is, it's just unfortunate, that's the only way to put it. As Machigacha comes out again, and both mons resist it, but again, we don't burn the Braviary, which means that we can't take it out. And we also got Spadef dropped on the previous Shadow Ball, so Sinistcha is down pretty bad, and the Spadef drop again from Shadow Ball is putting us in a worse position, but the Esper Wing is going to critical hit, finish off Hippowdon again, and even though Machigacha comes out one last time, it's still not critting either target for like a pretty decent amount of damage it would do, but Shadow Ball is going to come out into Sinistcha, so it felt like that game, the RNG was really against us that game, as I feel like we probably would have had it if the RNG wasn't so bad, but we're also counting on RNG ourselves, so it's kind of fair. In this game, the opponent's bringing quite a different bunch of mons here. I feel like what they're trying to sneak in is Mousehold's side attacking Archaludon while just having Storm Drain Gastrodon in order to trick him things with Sinistcha. And the Salazzle is probably Dragon Cheer for the Archaludon, and I have no idea what Dodrio is doing here, if I'm being honest. But they decided to lead Dodrio and Salazzle, which is great for me because I led Lycanroc and Annihilate, so we swap in Hippowdon in order to get to speed on Lycanroc, and we land the Rock Slide into both slots, as both slots go down into Sandstorm range, and they get off one turn here, which is Toxicking Hippowdon and Brave Birding Hippowdon, so we don't even have to wait for the Sand to take out Dodrio, but the Sand will take out Salazzle, and now it is a 2v4 scenario, which we really like with Hippowdon, because we get to close combat the Archaludon here for a massive chunk of damage, and the Aura Sphere into Lycanroc, but Lycanroc takes it pretty good, and the Sand Tomb crits the Archaludon, but it wouldn't have mattered because the Sand Tomb damage would have taken down the Archaludon at the end of the turn, and they do Muddy Water Accuracy drop Hippowdon here, but we get to bring in Sinistcha, and that's going to force a Terra on Gastrodon, and they go Terra Fairy, as the Machigacha does crit, but at this point the game is super over, and you'll see once we bring out the last Pokemon here. They crit Hippowdon back with the Muddy Water as Sinistcha dodges it, but we'll see, our last Pokemon super shorts up the game because it is Annihilate with the final Gambit. And lastly, we have a battle against a Firewood Grass Core with Rillaboom, Primarina, and Volcarona, but they also have the Sneasler for probably Grassy Speed Unburdened Speed Boost with Rillaboom, and Dragapult behind the Electabuzz's support can be really hard to get rid of. So this battle is going to start with Klefki and Sinistcha on the field, as I was really hoping that it would lead Primarina, because that's our biggest threat to Hippowdon, even though did I actually bring Hippowdon this game? I can't remember. But we protect with Klefki as they protect with Primarina, and the Electabuzz doesn't want Sinistcha to taunt, but I was fine with that because I just wanted to start going for the Matcha Gotcha chip into both Mons, and I swap in Annihilape here, hoping to maybe catch them a little bit off guard, but they go for the Electro Web in order to drop both speed, but that gives us Defiant at least on Annihilape, as Matcha Gotcha comes out into both, and I don't think we don't burn either here, as Electabuzz is redirecting for the Dragapult, but because of the speed, Dragapult's faster, and they start Phantom Forcing with Dragapult, so we kind of have to make a prediction on this next turn, because we have Cinccino in the back, and I thought that they were going to Phantom Force Sinistcha, but they actually Phantom Forced Annihilape, which is just not as good, and they Dark Claw Cinccino, and they get the poison, which means that Cinccino's turns are numbered, as we bring back in Klefki to maybe kind of bring things back around in our favor, and we get the Thunder Wave into Dragapult, and since Dragapult is using Phantom Force, it means that there's a pretty decent chance that Dragapult just won't get to attack, especially since it's probably Choice Band, but we get the Tail Slap at least into what was previously the Sneasler, but that's going to bring Primarina down by a good amount of health. And Klefki at least takes the Phantom Force, so it might actually not be Choice Band, because Klefki took that pretty well, but Primarina at least takes the Paraturn as the Dragapult disappears, and we get the Dazzling Gleam and the Matcha Gotcha off with Sinistcha, so we get to take Primarina off the field. Now they're going to bring back in Sneasler, and they fake out into Klefki, and they Phantom Force into Sinistcha, and Sinistcha is just barely able to take it. Sinistcha gets off a Matcha Gotcha into both slots here, and gets a little bit of health back, but we burn the Sneasler, which is pretty big, but also would have been nice to paralyze it with Klefki. We tear Steel here to avoid the Dire Claw, which is pretty big, and the Dragapult goes for Phantom Force again. Still not having taken a Paraturn, and we get to get off the Life Dew with Sinistcha, as now if the Sneasler wants to KO Sinistcha, it probably has to go for close combat, which means that Klefki's Dazzling Gleam damage in combination with the Burn Chip is probably going to take it out once it takes that special defense drop from the close combat. But they Phantom Force Klefki here because I think that's what they really have. Like, if they Phantom Force into Sinistcha in order to try and take it out, and then the close combat doesn't KO Klefki, I think we just kind of win the game because Dragapult will take so much Rocky Helmet chip. But they finally decide to try and KO Sinistcha, but Sinistcha barely lives the Stellar Terra close combat, which is crazy, as the Dazzling Gleam is now going to take out the Sneasler, as we can Life Dew up Klefki in order to live another Phantom Force, but we can just safely redirect the Phantom Force into Sinistcha, which means that Dragapult is going to take the Rocky Helmet damage, and Klefki is going to be the last Pokemon standing on the field.
Yeah, we paralyzed Dragapult on turn 5, and it went a full 12 turns without being paralyzed, so RNG was kind of in our favor because we did para the Primarina on that one turn, and we burned the Sneasler, which allowed Sinistcha to stay alive, but, I mean, paralyzing the Dragapult would have been the thing that really won us the game there, but that's just how the RNG works sometimes. Alright, well that was the Hippowdon Drives People Insane team. I hope you can see why it drives people insane, because if you just get that RNG to work a little bit in your favor, you can go a long way. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like on the video, and even consider subscribing, because both of those things would help me out an absolute ton. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you.